Welcome to Intuition Unleashed, a revolution in personal liberation. The go-to podcast that helps you access intuitive guidance combined with mental health and spirituality. Let your intuition guide you and unlock a life of true liberation. And now your host, Becc Nelson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Intuition Unleashed. It's a revolution in personal liberation. I'm your host, Becc Nelson. I am an author, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and a spiritual psychic medium. And today I'm so excited to introduce my guest, Joyce Layman. Hey, Joyce.
Hey there.
Joyce, I have a little story behind everybody that comes on, a little personal story, because the people that come on are people that I have intuitively connected with myself. And I got a little bit of a story to tell you about how Joyce and I did. I don't even know if you know this story, Joyce. So I actually hooked up with, that sounds bad. Joyce and I hooked up back maybe about a year and a half ago. And so what happened was that she was a part of a bundle of somebody else that I'm connected to. And I just really felt connected with some of the things that she was presenting. And she's actually a visibility strategist. So she does TED Talk. She's a TEDx speaker. She's the author of Connecting Advantage and Just Another Leap. So she already has a couple of publications under her belt. And we're going to talk about Just Another Leap today. It's a part of your story for today. But when I started to notice some of the things that you were putting out there, it really resonated with me, because just talking about visibility, it's not what I do, right? I'm a healer. I'm a therapist. I don't do visibility. And when we talk about social media and that sort of thing, you and I are both more mature ladies, and we didn't grow up with this stuff. So it's not something that I, say that I'm an expert in. And when I saw how you were putting stuff out there about visibility and strategy, it was things that I said, to myself, okay, I can do that. And you broke it down into smaller steps. What I also really loved is that you talk about things from a neurological perspective or mindset perspective. And that's something that I can really relate to. And you do bring in, which is our topic today, intuition. So you kind of told me a story. At one point I was like, I'd really like you to be on my show, because, one hand washes the other, right? Because I'd like to have other people find out who you are and say, hey, I can do visibility. If I break it down like this into these, sometimes the steps that you give, I'm like, wow, she's really telling me step one, do this exactly. And wow, it's really in a way that's laid out that I can follow it, and you make it less scary. So I'm very excited to have you on, because when I said to you, you kind of talk about some of the same things that I do in a very different way. What can you talk about when you came on here? You told me this whole story about that you're going to talk about today, about the Reticular Activating System and how your book came to be. And I know that we have talked at various points as you were actually rewriting your book with another edition, and everything sort of blew up for you. Now I'm telling your whole story right now, but so I digress. So what I start with is, I ask all my guests this. So it's my hypothesis that usually there's sort of a moment that the universe hands you, an opportunity to grow, that at the time felt like, why is this happening to me? This is too overwhelming. But afterwards, as you mature and you look back on it, you really see it as an opportunity for growth. And it actually helped you as a catalyst, but it kind of became a part of your purpose and your learnings that you've used. So can you tell me a little bit about when something like that happened for you?
In 2013, I was sitting at my desk Saturday morning, and an email came through from TEDx organizers asking me to speak on comfort zones. And I thought, I'm being punked. Seriously, I thought I was being punked, because I had been doing keynotes and training since 2008. I think secretly for speakers and trainers, it's always, in fact, you don't even have to be a speaker or trainer. I think secretly for a lot of people, it's like, oh my God, I'd love to be able to speak at TEDx. And literally an email came through. And I reached out, yes, organizers, UMKC. Interestingly enough, they said that they couldn't tell me how they found me, but they found me and they knew specifically comfort zones, which was part of the suite of talks that I had been speaking on. Performance mindset, right? I was more in the corporate world, so performance mindset. And I had been doing speaking, but yet preparing for TEDx is a whole different animal.
I'll bet.
Yeah. Well, and even as I know, even as you're watching this, so people find it hard to believe I'm a former wallflower in the world of business networking. Public speaking was my second biggest fear. I would physically shake if you put a microphone in front of me. And so part of it was the training that I went through in 2005 that literally changed the course of my career, my life, and everything else. And so that was great. I had a speaking coach I'd worked with in 2007, but still TEDx was like a whole different level of insanity for prep because you had 18 minutes to nail it. And Amy Purdy was my inspiration because I wanted to have more of a story. So if you like TEDx, go Google Amy Purdy. Her story is just phenomenal. But what happened with that is I presented in the fall of 2013. It literally took them till January to get the videos done from the event. It literally takes them months to be able to do that. And one of my closest friends, business collaboration, also Jennifer Peak, she put a page up on my website that said, Just Another Leap, coming spring of 2014, the book. So she built it, and the title of my talk is There to Hear is Just Another Leap. So that's why we decided Just Another Leap would be the book title. She built the site or built a page on my site. And I had a conference reach out to me in January. And they're like, oh, we see your book is going to be, coming in the spring. And we have a conference that we want you to speak at and bring it to, and you can have back of the room sales. And I'm like, fantastic. That's April. I got off the phone. I called Jennifer and said, oh, crap, I got to write a book.
No pressure.
No words on paper. No words on paper. Everything was in my head, and pretty much 3 months to do it in. And I'd never written a book before. So the good thing, I'm a Colby A quick start. So apparently at one time I thought I was just crazy, but I tend to say yes and figure it out even when it scares the living daylights out of me. So I said yes, I had a deadline, but literally the TEDx talk came out of the blue. And then having to write the book, I did it fast. I did it. I'm even going to give you this was the original book, right? That was the book. I hired a copy editor. I hired a group, got it published, got it to print, took it to the conference. And I thought everything's great and I'm safe. And I now have a book, back of the room sales. But it wasn't the full story that needed to be told, but that was going to take 10 years.
So fast forward. 2025.
Yes. So actually fast forward to 2024. And this is where another moment out of the blue, I had a speaking client reach out of the blue. So just so you know, there was a little, everybody had kind of a thing that happened in 2020 that pretty much changed how everybody was doing business. So I do want to make sure I share this. So before 2020, most of my clients were associations, companies. I was doing keynotes, trainings. I had a handful of private coaching clients that I was doing website branding and all of that stuff for. But come 2020, nobody's hiring a speaker. So that literally got put on the shelf. And because I'd started working with amazing people like you and other service providers, yes, I hadn't fully gotten back. In fact, I really hadn't done anything business development wise for speaking, but on occasion I would have clients reach out of the blue, speakers bureaus. I'm still out on all the sites asking me to speak. And that's how this opportunity happened last fall. And it was on LinkedIn, which is the other side of what I do. I'm known as a walking LinkedIn. So I went and spoke at the conference, didn't think anything about it. They reached out to me in January and said, oh, we want you to speak for our entire team. And their entire team books events for associations all over the country. So this is a big deal, like major deal. And the first thing that went through my head is, oh, the books. 2014 was the first one. 2015 was the second one. I actually got this book rewritten in about a month, just in time. So when I spoke to the group, I had it. The dilemma was, in this book, I mentioned just another leap. So I had set myself up for, let's put Joyce on a journey of.
Oh boy. So go back to the original question, right? Yes. So the moment that you're saying is like that opportunity for growth that you were like, oh crap, was when they first asked you to speak way back. Mm-hmm. And you are not the first person I've heard say that if it scares the crap out of you, you probably need to do it. Right? That's where the growth is.
Yeah.
You hear that, everybody? That's where your yes is.
Yes. And the funny thing too, if you do watch the TEDx video, so here's the other thing. Speaking, so we're going to do stuff, right? We're going to do stuff. We're like, oh, I can speak and blah, blah. I get up. I am so nervous. I am literally on the red circle. 3 minutes in, the prior speaker video started playing during my talk.
Oh boy. And
I had a PowerPoint slide up because I had a handful of PowerPoint slides, but about 3 minutes in, I'm up taking you up on the Odyssey High course at William Jewell. I'm painting this picture being 35 feet in the air, scared to death. And you hear this big booming voice. And I look to the right of the stage and I look back, and then I said, and then God chimed in and the audience lost it. And it put me right in my groove. And guess what? The tech team could not explain where the other audio came from.
So the universe gave you comic relief to be able to lean on. And yes, suddenly, okay. Well, okay, so let's segue this, because I've heard your stories, and what everybody doesn't know about you is that your last name is Layman, right? Yeah. And you kind of do a play on words because you offer things in layman's terms. Yes. Now, we're going to focus on the reticular activating system, which I'm just going to call it RAS because that's a mouthful.
Yes.
And you're going to help us understand the RAS in layman's terms and how that kind of played into your book, etc. And then how everybody else can also tap into the same thing. Now, we're talking about science here, not woo-woo, science.
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of people don't know what that is, and break it down for us.
All right. To back up really quick, because you're like, where the hell did this even come from?
Yeah.
I went through a training in 2005, 4-day training with the Pacific Institute based in cognitive psychology and social learning theory, how the brain works, conscious, subconscious, habits, attitudes, beliefs, and expectations. The 4 days turned into me being trained as a facilitator, and that's literally what launched my business as a speaker. So it's not like I read it in a book. It's not like I heard a podcast and thought, this is great. I went through the training and I had been teaching this the whole time. And how I started really using the RAS was I went from wallflower to be known as a walking LinkedIn. And how I did that was using my reticular activating system. So the easiest way to think about this, well, the science side, it's located in the central cortex of your brain. It's basically a filter. It's how we filter information. An easy example is think back to the last time you bought a car and you drove it off the lot. Did you start to see that car everywhere in that same color? That's your reticular activating system. That car was there the entire time. You didn't notice it because it wasn't important. We have millions of bits of information flying through our brain every second. We can process about 10 out of millions of bits. So what happens with the reticular activating system, when you set a goal, when you say, here's something I want to do, maybe I want to go buy a washer and dryer. Suddenly you started noticing sales. Hint, hint, they're there. There are always sales on washers and dryers. You just didn't notice it. How I did it, how I became known as a walking LinkedIn is I would be talking to somebody at a networking event And from what they were saying, it's like my brain was doing keyword searches. I would hear these words and I'm like, oh, you need to meet this person because they do this thing. And that's how I started using my RAS. Literally, it's like I started connecting other people. And it was just from listening and understanding what my brain was doing.
What? I mean, every time you explain it, I'm still like, what? So did you know when you were doing that at the time that did you already like you actively were doing that, or did you just figure out later, oh my God, that's what I was doing?
No, the training I went through in 2005, the Pacific Institute, which I facilitate, I still do that teaching. That's what gave me the understanding of what my brain is doing. So we've heard of law of attraction, and I'm going to put a little bit of rain on law of attraction where they say, you know, envision the car when you're in the parking lot and you'll see that's your RAS. That's your RAS getting really specific, going, oh, there's a car that's backing up. So it's the science side of what it is. And please, I want to be very clear. I call myself woo. I have done all the woo-woo stuff for over 30 years. I studied feng shui when I first came to the United States. I've got crystals all over my office. I pay attention to astrology. On occasion, I'll draw a card from my goddess deck. I totally appreciate everything on the woo-woo side. I love, Becc, what you do from intuition and getting readings. I mean, oh my God, it's amazing. So when I say it's not law of attraction, I don't want you watching to think that I'm poo-pooing that. I am absolutely not. I want to give you the layman's term science side of what your brain's doing so you can get super intentional about it, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Can I tell you a really funny story? One of my favorite RAS stories?
Yes.
Okay. So this has been probably 7 or 8 years ago. I'm on a dating app at the time. And I look at this guy and his profile says managing partner private equity firm. I had a client in Kansas City who was looking for private equity money. So I reached out to him on the dating app and said, hey, I don't want to go out with you to date, but I'd love to have coffee and talk about how you might be a good fit for my client. And he said yes. His name's Tim. We met for coffee. I introduced him to my client. He became a great business contact. In fact, we're still in touch. He got married, moved to St. Louis. They have a couple of kids. It's great, but literally on a dating app.
Wow.
So when I'm saying opportunities are everywhere, they are everywhere. And at the time, that was important. Like I said, private equity, I just had to have the guts to reach out and ask. And he could have said no. I mean, he could have turned me down and he didn't. He said yes, and we met for coffee. And that's, yeah, I mean, I have story after story after story of connections like that. But it's literally, now that you know this, now that you're listening to this, and you go, okay, here's the goal that I want. Or I usually say it's the person, the company, the resource, the information. Your brain will start to go, there it is, there it is, there it is. And it will pop up. And the more you use it, your RAS is like a muscle. The more you use it, it just gets easier and easier and easier.
You know, you make it sound easy. You've got it mastered. Is this you know my Matt Rife story? Is this sort of that using the Matt, that example?
Well, with Matt, I mean, you happen to be in the audience, you had the book. To me, that also falls into kind of the synchronistic things of right place, right time, right? You had to be open to being there. And he's talking about, right? You look at his topic and his conversation, you're like, and there you are. So yeah, and because it also works both ways. So that's why if you think about it, you know, if you look at the strategy side, as far as what I do from branding, if your messaging isn't speaking to the person who's looking for you, they're never going to find you. So that's why your website, your social media profile, maybe you're just meeting somebody, you're playing pickleball, or maybe you're in a book club. It works the same way. It's not just an online thing. I mean, it works everywhere. Your RAS is always working, and it works both ways, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Okay. So you're already, this is really confusing because people are like, how do I activate this? And the way that it is part of your intuition, but it's not solely your intuition because it's actually a spot in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're focusing on something and then you notice where it pops up.
Yes. It's literally how your brain filters information. And if you happen to hear a meows because my 16-year-old bossy little girl cat decided that now's the time she's going to wake up and she thinks she needs to join us. So if you hear,
always comes in our meeting. And Vader too.
Yes, I haven't seen Vader. He's probably still asleep. But anyway, Gabby's awake. So, but when it comes to reticular activating, and now she's getting louder. Stop it. But when it comes to your RAS, that's why if you think about goals, so if you get super specific on goals, and maybe it's a new exercise routine that you want to get into, you're going to start to notice those things. And I always have people say, yeah, but my phone is listening to me and I know they're popping up ads. Well, how many times have you thought about something and you've never said it and it's still there? Those are the examples I want you to think about, because that's when your RAS is really tuning in to what's going on.
Whoa.
What?
Okay. So you have said that's like crazy because that has totally happened, right? That you're thinking I need a new pair of socks, and then all of a sudden there's an ad for socks, right? And
Yeah.
Again, is it always there, or did you just notice it because you started thinking about socks? So you've said that synchronicity isn't just magic, it's mindset plus strategy. So how does strategy help to turn the nudges into real results?
Trying to think of the best way to, so going back to my client hired me for the Women in Technology conference. I spoke, didn't think anything about it. They brought me back in, and then I spoke for them. I went ahead and got Your Connecting Advantage. I got the nudge, and I'm like, I'm going to have to rewrite the book. And then in the midst of rewriting Just Another Leap, which grew to, that's a lot. I was trying to battle what my intuition, what my nudges were saying, and like, no, I need to keep this edited. It needs to be, I need to stick under 250 to 300, keep it super short. And then I went, going all in. So, there are F-bombs in the book. I cuss in real life. There's cussing in the book. There's lots of stories.
This is why we get along.
I do. I'm very careful when I'm on stage that I don't do, but life happens. I mean, life just happens. So anyway, part of it was I knew I needed to write the book and get it up to speed, but I kept trying to resist putting the stories in that were super important. But when I put the stories, when I started that process, that same client reached out again and said, can you talk on time management? And I said, just so happens there's like a section in the book that I can get into time management, but we're going to talk about how to use your brain to do it differently than color-coded planners. And I'm just going to write the 3 top things I need to do today. So literally writing the book, there came a 3-part workshop that they hired me specifically to do a virtual workshop for their training platform. And literally out of that rolled into another program. I'm doing a breakout session in DC on November 3rd, and it's on imposter syndrome. One of the stories I tell in the book is Ursula Burns, the CEO of Xerox, openly admitting to 800 women in a leadership conference that she had imposter syndrome. And it's in the book. So it's kind of like, had I not done the book, those opportunities wouldn't be there. But it's like, sure.
This is very difficult for people to conceptualize, that because you were rewriting these stories, those opportunities, that's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I know.
And this is honestly, so let me talk about self-doubt for a second, because this comes up in a number of, like, people talk about this all the time. And everybody has a different take on it. People second guess themselves. Was that my intuition? Was that really a nudge? Right? You talk about imposter syndrome. How do you talk about telling the difference between an intuitive nudge worth following versus just a distraction?
Because when I get a well, you're intuitive, right? It's a different like physical feeling for me versus, oh, let's go buy that course or let's go opt into that thing and let's go. And then you're going down the rabbit hole. That feels very different than that little voice inside of me saying, F it, we're doing this, right? There's a reason I need to be doing this. I don't know exactly what it is yet, but I've already gotten 2 major nudges that just republishing the book is now out there. But it also brought me back to the thing that I absolutely love doing. And that is speaking, coaching, and training on mindset. And all the lived experiences are in the book. The stuff that I went through, the abusive relationship, can I cuss?
Sure.
There's a term I use in the book called bullshit blinders. The bullshit blinders that we put on, also called scotomas, which is a Greek word meaning blind spot. I just thought the bullshit blinders sounded better than scotomas. But it's all right. Everything's in there. And so as long as I just thought, I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to keep doing this, it brought me back to my passion and absolutely love what I love doing. And it just, like I said, it feels right. It feels good. And I'm seeing the opportunities because I'm listening to my gut versus, oh, bright, shiny object syndrome. And I can fall into the bright, shiny object syndrome or they go down the rabbit hole on social media like everybody else. It's the feeling that's different. Does that help?
You mentioned your gut. And I think that's where a lot of people will feel it. Like if something's not right for you and you kind of get this like, ugh, and that's the face that I even feel myself making, like, then it's probably not right for you.
And it's the difference between an ick and it feels solid. That to me, it's like when something like you're getting that, I don't need to get in the car. There's something that's going on and I really shouldn't do that versus I would say more of a knowing, if that makes sense. It's a very different type of feeling versus something over here going, Mayday, Mayday, danger, Will Robinson, don't do that versus.
No, we show our age. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm going to be 61 in 2 weeks. So there I
am. This is an important point too, because you kind of mentioned that fear thing. Just because it scares you doesn't mean you're not supposed to do it. In fact, sometimes that what we think is fear is actually excitement. So those two can feel very close together. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you have to check in and ask yourself, is this the right move for me? And your body will kind of tell you that. And if you're feeling like, then that's probably a no. Right. So before we go into break, we have talked about the reticular activating system, the RAS, your intuition, how synchronicities sort of start setting up, and then strategy. So how to take those nudges and sort of string them together. Right. So when we come back from break, we're going to talk more about specifically rewriting your book and how it went from 130 pages to over 400 pages.
Yeah.
And then would you say you're updating the book and then things show up, or things show up and you wrote the book? It sounds like it kind of went both ways.
It did kind of go both ways.
All right. Well, when we come back from break, we're going to hear more about Joyce's stories about her journey and writing her book. So see you in 2 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the second half of Intuition Unleashed. I'm joined by my guest, Joyce Layman, and we are talking about the Reticular Activating System, or the RAS, which is an actual part of your brain. So we're talking neuroscience, I guess you can say. That makes me feel like we're special. I'm joined by Joyce, and I really want to talk more about your specific stories, Joyce, because that's really where people learn the best. We've talked about sort of the science behind it. Now, you called your book that you rewrote and it quadrupled in length. You shared that you called it you termed it the book that refused to say small, and then the speaking engagements that showed up in unexpected ways. So can you share some of those stories? You've shared a couple of them, but do you have some other things that the intuition and the RAS work together to shape your book and your journey?
Yes. So part of the process, and as you're listening to this, it's not just about my book. I want you to be listening to this thinking, how can I apply that into my life as well with your reticular activating system? Because I do promise you, now that you've heard this, once you start to focus, and in fact, you don't even need to focus. If you get too focused and too stressed, then your subconscious goes boop, and checks out. But if you go, okay, this is what I need to pay attention to, like green trucks, I'm going to say green trucks. Just go drive around and don't force it. Just let it happen. And that's the thing, going back to like the book, I wasn't forcing the book. I wasn't saying, I knew I had a deadline that I was trying to hit, right? I had a certain deadline because I needed to make sure I had it ready for the 3-part series that I delivered in July. So that was kind of the deadline that I wanted to make sure. So anybody in this association, if they wanted to order it, they would have it. So that was kind of that first deadline that we had, or I should say the big deadline. But part of it was, I kept having that ping pong match in my head, because we like to have ping pong matches in our head where we're like, I need to do, no, I don't. I need to do, no, I don't. And I kept trying to whittle it down to make it the airplane book, right? What kind of book can you read on an airplane and be done with? And then it was the nudges that it's like, but this is a good story, and this is a good story, and this needs to come in, and this needs to come in as well. And I will be very honest in this. In fact, I put it in the book because people were like, how the heck did you get it written that quickly? If you count 15 to 20 hours per chapter writing that quickly,
Oof.
Yeah. But I used ChatGPT and Claude, and I used the voice notes. So when I did my books the first time, I don't like to write. And what I did then is I talked and I transcribed it and I sent it to an editor. That's how I did my books the first time. And then we went back and forth on the manuscript after that. But yeah, I mean, Becc, if you said, Joyce, you got to write a 400-page book, I would have that same visceral response of, ah. But the cool thing is being able to use the voice feature in ChatGPT. I also said, ask me questions, help me remember the stories that I may have told in a keynote or a training back in 2015, or a story from when I was a child that I didn't remember. So that was the other thing, is the creativity, and it just kept coming out. So that's how I was able to build the book out. But the cool thing was, it helped me, as I mentioned in the first half, it kind of helped me tap into what I truly love, absolutely love to do, what changed my life. We all have a story that can make an impact on somebody else. So yes, Becc, you should be speaking, because you do have an extraordinary story and gifts that you need to share. But you do. We all have stories. And I think it's that, see, now you're going to make me cry. I think it's that we feel that we're good enough, or it's the Stuart Smiley. You know, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. God darn it. Somebody likes me. And as I was going through the book, there's stories that kept coming out. And then, of course, I'm having this conversation with ChatGPT going, but does that add anything to it? Because this isn't just my perspective. I wanted to make sure that somebody was reading it was actually getting something out of it, right?
You know what I love about ChatGPT is, no matter what I say to it, like, do you think this is important? They always say yes. He always says yes, and then shows you how. And then you're like, well, hell, I never thought of it like that.
Well, until you go through it and say, look at it like a New York Times bestselling editor and be brutal. And then it's like, you don't need that. You can tighten. But going back to the stories and the inspiration, like, how do you get inspired? So it was just like, what stories need to be in here? And those stories, like I said, I wanted to make sure there was a place for everything and that the story was making sense for somebody who read it. The examples that I was giving. So if you think it's part memoir, part survival guide, neuroscience in layman's terms, there's actually a section called In Case of Emergency, Break Glossary, with words like bullshit blinders, kerfuffle. So there's that. The studies are in the back that I cited. There's a toolkit, an OBS toolkit in the back, you know, as somebody who's experienced PTSD, gone through EMDR. I have apps that I like. You know, it's kind of like I put this stuff in there. It's basically, here's all the stuff that I've been using in my own life for, I don't know, you know, the personal development, probably 30 years, but even things, you know, from when I was a kid, I just kept shoving it all in the book. And then the nudges that would happen, because that really is the question. It's like, so how did the nudges happen and where did the synchronicities come from? I do put a warning at the beginning of chapter 6, because chapter 6 is about grief and it's pretty brutal. I won't give away all the stories, but I mean, I've lived this, and writing it, I've had EMDR because of the trauma. And I was writing that night before, and the morning I woke up, and I'm up about 6 a.m. and I'm just bawling as I'm typing, drinking coffee. The cats are next to me and I'm just bawling. And I thought, I'm going to go to Costco and buy plants.
Oh, plants fixes it. You're one of those people? Okay.
So I'm a complete plant nerd. And the night before, a friend said, hey, Mandevilla just arrived at Costco. And I thought, okay, if I'm actually going to go do my real day job, I need to get my mindset right about me. So I jumped in the car, went to Costco when they opened, and there was a woman who worked at Costco who's out in the front. And if you've ever shopped at Sam's Club or Costco, you know when they bring in plants and flowers, like it's, you know, a whole huge section. And she comes up to me and she goes, can I ask you about plants? And I said, yeah. And she said, I just moved from Fort Osage to Sibley, Missouri. And out of 9 out of 10 people in Kansas City, I happen to live on the southeast side of Kansas City. 9 out of 10 people you ask here will have no clue where Sibley, Missouri is. It's further out. It's a small little town. And it's where my horse died in a barn fire on Christmas night, 2012. And I had literally just been writing about her that morning. Literally had just been putting that out. I've had to have EMDR just to be able to think about the fire and not, and Becc, you know, as a therapist, but it was one of those things. What are the odds? What are the actual odds that I'm doing that? And Mandevillas to help me feel better. And she literally said, I just moved there. She had no clue. The other crazy thing, and this was so much fun, like I said, I was able to go back and live memories again. I reached out to my Lisa, who was my best friend when I was in junior high and high school. And imagine 2 12-year-olds, our parents would literally take us to Smithville, which was a rural community, probably 30 minutes away from where we lived. And we'd go ride on horseback all day. They'd literally take us to the farm, drop us off and say, we'll pick you up tonight. We would not do that now, but they did it when we were 12. They literally did it. And I had reached out to Lisa on Facebook. And keep in mind, I haven't seen her in person in probably 10 years. We do message each other on occasion. It's just our lives kind of went that way. And what was so crazy is I said, hey, Lisa, I have questions I'm trying to get, because chapter 5, it's a different version of goal setting. I bring in horses. One of the, I bring in Baby. We won a national championship in 1996. I had her 22 years, showed for 11, like she was my once in a lifetime girl. But I was trying to remember some of the younger stories, because talk about grit and resilience. You're thrown out at a farm at 12 years old. It's like, just go ride.
Here's your horse.
Yeah. And one of the lines is a palomino, a sling, and very bad decisions. I mean, we were feral. I swear we were 2 feral kids out there. And I reached out to her and she's like, do you remember the time your horse reared up and went over backwards with me? I'm like, oh, forgot about that. And then she said, the time we went to your grandma's and the neighbor said that if we could catch the horse, we could ride it. So we caught it. I threw up on its back and it drug us across the pasture and we thought we were both going to die. And I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. But then she said, yesterday, I turned over, there was a picture of her horse, Judy, with her parents. She said, I turned it over on the back and you'd written on the back of it the day before I reached out to her in Facebook.
Yes. And is that intuition or in the universe or synchronicities, or is that the RAS at work?
To me, that's the nudges and the intuition of, or that you need to write this book. And then the synchronicities are happening. She remembered the picture, but yet it was,
These are all things that you need to pay attention to. So if you're watching this and you can think of your own examples of this, you're like, oh my God, that's the time that such and such. Yes, that's your example.
You think of somebody and they call. You think of somebody and they text you. You think of somebody and they send you it's the email. It's the same stuff. It is the exact, those are those nudges. I know some people call them God winks. There's a lot, but it's like that, it's that you're doing the right thing. And the more it happened, it's like, okay, there is a reason I need to be writing this. And the stories that I'm putting in here are the right stories. So that was the validation that this is what needs to be in here.
You know what? I forgot that's also what brought us together, because we're both equestrians. Because I lost my hard horse 5 years ago too. And actually I just went yesterday and sold his saddle, and I have one more left and I just can't let go of it. And it's been 5 years.
Yeah. I still have her national championship saddle and I'm actually donating it. I'm calling barns and saying, where's there a child that really wants to do this and they don't have the money? It's got a lot of good juju. We spent a lot of good years and won a national championship.
Use your RAS.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you use the example of try when, thinking about green trucks and then seeing what happens, right? Can you apply that to something that has to do with business or personal, strategies, something that can be a little bit more applied? The green truck is fun. How can people apply that?
So here's another story of it's RAS and synchronicity as well. Years ago, I volunteered on a board for an organization who helped at-risk girls in the Kansas City, Kansas school district. And I was fundraising chair, which in essence, that meant I had to kiss a lot of frogs. So if you've ever done any fundraising, it means you got to ask. You got to ask and you got to ask and you got to ask. And you never know what's going to happen. So the crazy thing was I went out to happy hour with a friend of mine, and there's a guy at the bar and he looks like Bono from U2. I mean, literally very similar. And I could see that the waitress and there was champagne and, it's like there was a lot of activity. And I'm like, I was just curious. I'm like, who is that guy?
Does he have an Irish accent?
And she said, so here's the funny thing. She said, well, his name's Mark and he owns a petroleum company. And I'm like, all I hear is ding, 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 petroleum, that equals money, right? But didn't think anything, nothing about it. My friend and I had a happy hour. We left. That all happened. A month later, I'm having a business breakfast at a restaurant downtown, and I see him in the restaurant. I don't say anything to him, but it's kind of like you look at somebody, you're like, I see you. That's great. About a month later, I'm out at happy hour again, and he's there. And it was interesting because I was at the time talking with a guy named Dave Chiardi, who started a Mexican restaurant chain in Kansas City called Margaritas. And Dave's got a fascinating story anyway. But he was with him and I'm like, I want to meet him. And he goes, why? And I said, well, I saw him here. And I'm with a nonprofit and I'm always looking for individuals who might be able, to support an organization. And I was very interested for Dave to come in and talk to them because he has the entrepreneur story of working for GM, making burritos, and the burritos turn into a restaurant chain because he was selling them when he worked for GM. And Dave's like, I'll introduce you. And so I ended up talking to Mark, and he goes, well, I'll give you money. And I said, great, I'll take $10,000. I'd had a drink. I had, well, probably had two. But anyway, he gave me his card and he said, call me, which I did. And we ended up chatting. And I found out kids' charities were one of the types of groups that he did donate to. So we ended up meeting. He wrote me a check on the spot for $3,500. And he goes, there's this guy you need to meet. And his name was Brad Gaddard. And he had an organization called Sparks of Hope. And what Sparks of Hope did is they literally ran a charity golf tournament and picked nonprofits and donated the money to the nonprofits. That was the year that we were one of the recipients of the funds from the golf tournament. That was $15,000.
Wow. So it wasn't necessarily this guy, but somebody that he was connected to. And you're saying that, I think what you're saying is you focused on, I really need some sizable donations and to find the right donors for my charity.
And like I said, I heard petroleum, but then we left. I just saw him again. So part of it is you got to have the courage to make the ask.
And a couple drinks doesn't hurt.
And a couple of drinks doesn't hurt. But if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And that's how I've managed to get some other, like Bob Berg, who wrote The Go-Giver and Endless Referrals. That's how I managed to develop an amazing relationship with Bob, who's endorsed my books. And I mean, he's the networking guy. So it's just one of those things of, if you don't ask, it's not going to happen. So you can get the nudge and your RAS can be saying keyword, like there it is, there it is, there it is. But if you don't actually act on it, then it's just not going to happen. So it's kind of like it all has to flow.
Okay. So let's put this into action. I, as Becc, want speaking engagements. I want to be able to put out there. So what I need to do is regularly say, and I really need to find some speaking engagements. Like I need to think more about that more purposefully.
Yes.
And then kind of pay more attention to what comes up. Do I see something on Facebook? Do I hear a, call to action, call for speakers on whatever? Am I on the right track?
Yeah. Because that's how, well, and this is what you have to define too. So when you say speaking engagements, speaking can be podcast guesting. It can be a summit host. You could be a guest expert in somebody's Facebook group or for somebody's course. Maybe it's a local women's group and they're looking for somebody to come in to speak on your topic, if that makes sense. So when you're saying speaking, also be careful that we don't pigeonhole it into something. It's anything where you're speaking that your name gets out there, if that makes sense.
It also sounds like you're saying, okay, if I'm speaking at a local senior center, then don't say to yourself like, oh, there's probably going to be 3 people that show up. Like leap on that. Yeah.
When what started my entire speaking career is I went to a networking luncheon because that was part of what I was doing. I was working for a company with the Pacific Institute. I was doing trainings for them. I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to speak and be more of a speaker, not just a trainer. And I went to a networking luncheon and this woman goes, so what do you do? And I said, I speak and train on mindset. She goes, great. We're always looking for speakers. Do you have a demo you can send me? I'm like, sure. And I left the meeting. I had no demo. But I knew I wanted to speak. I knew I wanted to do something. Well, long story short, I ended up working for Well Life at Work doing corporate wellness talks. And that's how I kind of actually, that was pre-investment in excellence. It was kind of like everything. I'd gone through the training. It was right at the time, but that's how I really got grounded in doing training. But there's a big difference in literal, like imagine that's a PowerPoint. In reading a PowerPoint versus being on a stage and doing a breakout session or even speaking at a local group. But the thing is, it's all stage time. It's all putting yourself out there. So if you have that desire, it goes to, you got to put yourself out there. And that was part of my TEDx talk. It's like, It's like, just take the next leap. And the leap might be that big. I'm not talking huge. The leap might be, I got to go to a networking event and I actually have to be around people. That might be that leap. Or it may be, I'm going to reach out online. So sometimes it's little. Sometimes it's just having the talk with yourself or having the friend that can say, come on. That's why I would get a hold of Jennifer and say, I need loving, kick me in the ass in a loving way. But clearly I'm not helping myself out. So you just need to do it for me.
So somebody who feels stuck, like they're doing all the work and nothing's happening. What's the one step that they can take to start seeing things a little bit differently?
It depends on what you're wanting to do. I mean, everything's different. Maybe it's a health. So if you have a health goal, that's going to be very different than if you're building a business. And for me, I had to build a website and I had to, all the mistakes I made building a speaking business is what got me to the work that I do today. So those tactics and that's very different than I want to get healthier, or I just want to go make more friends, or maybe I want to serve on a nonprofit board. Okay, start doing searches in the area or go to Facebook and look at nonprofit boards or reach out to friends and say, what nonprofits do you know of who are looking for volunteers? Does that make sense? It's a really different kind of thing.
You're talking about intention. Make sure you put that intention out into the world, because that sounds like it's a part of this RAS.
Once you get clear and specific on the goal that you want, that's why if you write down a goal, those millions of bits of information and we can process 10, you've now gotten specific so your RAS knows what to focus on.
Okay, so actually a good first step might be write it down. Mm-hmm. And then talk about it with other people, because now you're built. See, now this is is it the intuition, the synchronicities? Now you're building energy around this topic.
Yeah. And sometimes, as we talked about earlier, sometimes it's the thought that you have in your head and then you start to notice it, right? So it's what you see, you think socks and you see an ad for socks on Facebook, but you never said anything. Think of the mental muscle that you're building every time you do that, and then go, I did it. I did it, right? Track the wins. Every time you have a win, it's a dopamine response in your brain. Don't discount it. Don't say, yeah, but it's oh, yeah, okay, I saw the socks. Great. What else am I going to see? Oh, well, how does that work when I write down a goal? Okay, I'm going to write it down. And by the way, if you share that with your friend, what you want, guess what? Their RAS can tune in to go, well, you need to talk to this person, and this person.
Things mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so write it down. Start building some energy, because it's not just the RAS kicking in here. It's also synchronicities, intuition. They're not the same, but they all assist each other. It sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, they certainly can. They certainly can. And it depends if you're, left brain, right brain, but it's like, write it down, get clear. Even if you say it in your head and you acknowledge this is what I'm looking for, then start to pay attention.
Okay, so very quickly, I don't know if I've ever talked about my Matt Rife strikes. I feel like it does kind of fall into there. I went to a local show because I live in Rhode Island and he moved to Rhode Island, and he was at a local comedy show. And I said, you know what, I'm going to bring my book with me, because he didn't even have a topic for that night. So I didn't even know what he was going to talk about. He didn't either. So I go and I bring my book and I say, I really hope that I'm going to be able to, I'd love to be able to take a picture of him. And here's me and Matt Rife. Right. And that didn't happen. Was not allowed to take a picture of him with it, but he put out into the audience, who has a dream? Right. And the woman next to me raised my arm for me because I had told her the story about the book. Right. And now that turned into an 8-minute TikTok on his Instagram or his TikTok.
If you hadn't mentioned the book, she wouldn't have known that. So her RAS went, oh, she's got a dream. Boop. And that's how it works. So she helped you. That's why I don't keep it to yourself.
Okay. So put it out there, put it on paper, talk about it. And if there's and we have like 2 minutes left, right? So if you have any key shift that you'd like people to take away from this, what would that be?
Your RAS is a muscle. It takes practice. Recognize every win you get, even the little wins, because it's the dopamine response in the brain. And then you get to duplicate it and duplicate it and duplicate it. So just everything builds off each other.
And you do have your website, I believe, written underneath you. In our show notes, there is a link to there's going to be your book. Right now it's available for $9.99. There will be a time where the Kindle version is available for 99 cents.
Yes, the Kindle's $9.99. This one's $18.99. The print's $18.99, but the Kindle's $9.99. September 16th through 19th, it's 99 cents for the Kindle.
Woohoo. And the link is in the show notes. Joyce, I knew it was a great idea to have you on. We're also good friends. My RAS is kicking in, your RAS is kicking in. Thanks everybody for joining us for another episode of Intuition Unleashed. Until next time, I'm Becc Nelson signing off. Thank you. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Intuition Unleashed. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. But before you go, we have one little challenge for you. Most of us have sneaky little habits that hold us back and trip us up, so why not take this not at all uncomfortable quiz to find out what you do to derail yourself from achieving your goals and how you can call yourself out on your own BS. So get to know your self-sabotage specialty and take the first step towards getting out of the way of your own success. Just visit https://becknelson.com/quiz and take the quiz now. That's becknelson.com/quiz, and we can't wait to see your results. As always, we'll be back next week with more Intuition Unleashed. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.